The Trump effect hits Facebook. This is the most amazing tectonic shift in culture I've seen yet. Mark Zuckerberg does a full mea culpa, will remove censorship from Facebook. Welcome to Doug in Exile. This is where the happy patriots are. We've got a great show for you. I hope you'll stick around for it. Don't forget to subscribe. That always helps us out. Let's watch.
Hey everyone. I want to talk about something important today because it's time to get back to our roots around free expression on Facebook and Instagram. I started building social media to give people a voice. I gave a speech at Georgetown 5 years ago about the importance of protecting free expression, and I still believe this today. But a lot has happened over the last several years. There's been widespread debate about potential harms from online content. Governments and legacy media have pushed to censor more and more. A lot of this is clearly political, but there's also a lot of legitimately bad stuff out there. Drugs, terrorism, child exploitation. These are things that we take very seriously, and I want to make sure that we handle responsibly. So we built a lot of complex systems to moderate content. But the problem with complex systems is they make mistakes. Even if they accidentally censor just 1% of posts, that's millions of people. And we've reached a point where it's just too many mistakes and too much censorship. The recent elections also feel like a cultural tipping point towards once again prioritizing speech.
We'll take that cultural tipping point on the recent elections, meaning the election of Trump. He's going to talk about how he's going to actually work with the Trump administration to remove more censorship from Facebook. Those of you who are watching this show on the Doug in Exile channel over on Facebook, that channel has been pushed down, made almost invisible. And now I'm looking forward to the views going up as they implement this new system of algorithms. You got to understand, there's so many users on X, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, probably even on TikTok. I don't know because I don't use it, but that they can't have a person go in and say, this channel needs to be reduced. You know, they don't go in and hand do it. They set an algorithm to say, search for anything political, say Trump or whatever, and it'll say, just kind of downplay that video a little bit. I saw it most when I was covering Kari Lake. And I would upload a video and it would just always get dinged to not be monetized just because it had Kari Lake's name in the title. I would change Kari Lake's name out of the title and the video would be monetized. So they'd suddenly go boop, they'd bump it up, even though it had the same material in it, just a different title that had her name in it or not, just to show you how the algorithm is very clunky. It ends up over censoring. And so it becomes a giant censorship complex. And now Zuckerberg is saying they're going to remove all that. So Facebook is going to be a platform, and Instagram, because they're owned by the same company, are going to be more competitive with X on free speech, because X right now dominates the news. Now, what does this have to do with us? I'm hoping that YouTube gets the hint, because they're now the largest censorship platform in the world. We're going to get over here to some more stats. We'll get back to more Zuckerberg, but first, here's CNN.
So President Biden has an op-ed out this morning, basically saying that he hopes people don't memory hole what happened on January 6th 4 years ago.
Joe Biden is trying to allegedly, who here believes that Joe Biden wrote his own op-ed? I don't think that's even possible. So someone in the Joe Biden administration wrote an op-ed saying he hopes people don't memory hole or forget what happened with January 6th, 2021. And memory hole is a specific reference to George Orwell's 1984, where they memory hold news events. The government did. And it's what we usually call what the left does. And so it's funny that Joe Biden in this op-ed is saying he hopes the people don't memory hole this. It's basically they don't want you to forget. Well, they ran on January 6, 2021. And what this segment really underlines in CNN is all of the failures of how that didn't work. I really love watching these numbers because the Democrats tried doing the January 6th thing, going, don't vote for Trump. That was one of their top issues. And they were hoping that would stick, and it just didn't work.
Views on Donald Trump and his responsibility for January 6th have changed, including how people feel he should be perceived politically, yes?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. You know, I think if you go back 4 years ago, right, Trump's role on January 6, 2021 should make him ineligible to be president, the clear majority of voters said yes, 56%, 56%, and that was including removal from office. But of course, Donald Trump won the presidency, and part of the reason why was because views on Trump completely shifted, including Trump's role on January 6, 2021 should make him ineligible for the presidency. By 2023, 2024, it was just 47%. So we saw this drop of about 9 points.
I don't believe 9 points makes a difference. A 9-point jump. I believe that 53 or 57% that Trump is ineligible for presidency because of January 6th. I believe those numbers, like all polls, were bumped up and artificially inflated. That is, Democrat pollsters go, we really like these numbers. We're going to favor these numbers. And so they were always inflated and exaggerated. There's other things that happened during the year that deflated that. And we'll get into that in a moment. It didn't stick. Obviously, it didn't work because Trump got the most overwhelming victory in recent history by a Republican. So something changed around pretty quick. What was it?
And that, of course, is all the difference in the world, going from a majority to short of a majority. And, of course, Donald Trump won the vast majority of the other 53% who did not believe that his role on January 6th would make him ineligible for the presidency.
Yeah, still a big number, but not enough.
Correct.
Right.
This 9-point shift was tremendous.
All right.
It was faked. The numbers were artificially inflated. And so these are actually being underreported, that it was only 9-point shift because Trump's victory was so overwhelming, it makes up for way beyond that 9-point shift. So even when they're trying to look at the numbers were so cooked that they're not accurate enough for them to get this accurate commentary on it. So even your opinions are wrong if your data that comes in is spoiled or fouled or biased. Then at best, what you're going to do is try and parse out a lie and figure out what's happening. That's why we're here to bring you the truth about these numbers, which is that from the very get-go, this is not science. This is political preferences by the pollsters over-reporting a negative about Trump, and people didn't feel that negative about it.
Let's talk about the why behind it, Harry.
Yeah, why? All right, so part of the reason why is, okay, was Trump greatly responsible for the attack on the Capitol? You go back to January 2021, it was 48%. By the time of December of 2023, look at that. Again, a clear shift down to 37%. This is an 11-point drop, very much mirroring that drop that we saw that the folks said that, of course, would make him ineligible for the presidency. So that is part of the reason why, right? Fewer folks thought he was responsible, greatly responsible for what happened on January 6th.
And just think of the media saying that Trump was responsible for what happened on January in 2021, on January 6th. They said he was an insurrectionist. They said that he told the people to go and take over America, which he didn't do. So even though full court press by all media, all newspapers, everything, even Twitter when they were working with the FBI, it didn't work on the American people. The American people smelled something on all this propaganda. It didn't stick. They didn't believe that Trump caused an insurrection. They didn't believe that it was an insurrection. And they didn't believe, therefore, that he really would be canceled from the presidency. But something else happened in 2023 that they're not documenting here. It was they marched out the whole Trump is a felon. When they started prosecuting Trump, a different, stronger marketing came out that even though the news kept saying Trump is guilty of a felony, Trump has a mugshot, Trump has a mugshot, the people got all this news and said, we reject your opinion on it. Thank you for telling us that Trump is up for being a felon. Thank you for telling us that he now has a mugshot. The people consumed it and digested it in a different way that's beyond what they were trying to control. Even when news lies to you, they're bringing you the news. Just the people are making their own decision on what to do with it. They're not going to allow media to tell them what to think. This is going to go back to Mark Zuckerberg at the end, but hang with this for a second.
But it's not just that. It's that people simply put didn't care as much about the attack on the Capitol. Look at this. January 6th is your biggest memory of Trump's first term in office. By the time of 2024, look at this. Look at this. It was just 5%. Just 5% of Americans. And among Republicans, it was just 2%. So the bottom line is fewer Americans faulted Donald Trump or thought he was greatly responsible for the January 6th attack. And more than that, as it went into the rearview mirror, far fewer folks thought that it was their number one memory.
Yeah, and this is an extraordinary number, given that President Biden, when he was still in the election, was really putting this as his main
Didn't matter.
issue. Never really was registering.
It never stuck. All their time they spent telling you about January 6th at that number on the left, the maximum number of both sides was only 5%. Thought it was the most memorable thing about Trump, including Democrats, meaning that people were thinking about January 6th and the insurrection instead of what Trump did for food prices, gas prices, the border. This is about a failure of media to be able to censor and brainwash you. They tried, we're laughing at them all the time because they still try to brainwash you. They're still getting all these numbers wrong. They're basically admitting that they were wrong. CNN is admitting, wow, we played this thing up. Even during Trump's becoming president this year on January 6th, CNN, Jake Tapper was still saying, how can they deal with Ted Cruz? Can you guys think about Ted Cruz in any other way than being the cause of January 6th? See, stuck in their head, it's still like 95%. But to the rest of America, it's 5% at the most, and 2% among Republicans. The way they think is so different than the American people, and it's why they were so wrong about this election. And Trump is coming to town. They are neutered. They have no potency now.
All right, how about views of the results of the 2020 election this 4 years later?
Yeah, this, I think, says everything, right? Because part of the reason those folks attacked the Capitol was because they thought incorrectly that the 2020 election results, in fact, did not reflect the view of the voters. Votes were cast and counted accurately. GOP voters after a given election, just 31%. Just 31% thought that about the 2020 election. Look at this. It turns out when you win an election, far more Republicans thought that the votes were cast and counted accurately.
They're basically trying to attribute that to, we thought it was fake before, or the votes weren't properly counted, even though, because it was strange to most of us that Biden got 15 million more votes. He was the number one. He was more popular than, even though he didn't campaign in public because of COVID, and they just hit him. They kept running him from the basement. And then now Trump wins. Well, we had a number of legal victories on shoring up the vote, including limiting ballot boxes, there was signature matching and illegal votes they were trying to make legal in Pennsylvania. They lost those cases, which gave Republicans more confidence that the election was secure. They removed a lot of restrictions that COVID brought in that said, we get it, that because of, social distancing and all that you weren't going to be able to cast your vote correctly in 2021, or that they would open it up to up to 3 days after the election, they'd still accept your vote. Those kinds of things were what made people not have as much confidence. I see, obviously, more Democrats thought 2021 was fair in the way that they counted the votes. And then today we've been collecting a lot of videos on Democrats questioning the election results this year because Trump won again, the same way that they questioned him in 2016. So that does represent a general trend that when your side wins, you think the votes are more secure than they were. But it doesn't explain what happened to the degree in 2021, where it was very widespread that people go, it feels like the rules have changed. And the rules did change in 2021 because of COVID. So that's fair to say. Let's get to Mark Zuckerberg on more of the actual specific things that Facebook is going to change. Every one of these points that he talks about is going to change ends up giving you the unspoken and invisible thing that all social media is doing to our posts and our content, and how they're delivering material to you. Every time he mentions a correction, you're going to see they're exposing what they do.
So we're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the US. After Trump first got elected in 2016, the legacy media wrote nonstop about how misinformation was a threat to democracy. We tried in good faith to address those concerns without becoming the arbiters of truth. But the fact checkers have just been too politically biased and have destroyed more trust than they've created, especially in the US. So over the next couple of months, we're going to phase in a more comprehensive community notes system.
And that's the biggest change of all, okay? This one right here. He said they're going from fact checkers, that is, they had tens of thousands of employees, going in and fact-checking stuff that was flagged on Facebook. They checked the fact, and they'd go, we disagree with whatever you said about COVID or the election or Trump's not an insurrectionist, and they would just fact check you out of existence. And they're all liberal. They're all hired from the Bay Area where Facebook headquarters are. So it's a huge bias problem, kind of like Trump getting a fair jury in Manhattan, New York. 92% are Biden voters and donors. He's changing that system. And to me, the biggest interesting thing is that he said much more like X, they're going to do community notes. So instead of a fact checker that is a liberal looking at things and determining what's a fact, community notes opens up all posts to the community. So over on the Doug in Exile page over on Facebook, it's going to be the community. The people are going to say, this isn't true, this is mean, this is illegal, this is good, we agree with this. That is, the community notes just tell you what the community has said about a post. And then the post stays, so they're less likely to remove it using a fact checker. But this is a huge influence that Elon Musk now has. So this not only affects X, Elon Musk has changed that, the number one news source in the world, but now he has gone to, Zuckerberg has said, we're going to do it much more like X, like Elon Musk. We're moving away from the algorithm and from people pulling content. And we're going to allow you guys just to leave your opinion at the bottom where you vote on if it's correct or not. And then the post stays up. That is a huge benefit. Shows Elon Musk didn't just change the company he bought. He has now influenced a company that's worth about $200 billion, which is Facebook. And he's changed the way that they do their community notes and their censorship. Huge win. Huge influence by Trump and Elon Musk. This affects, because Zuckerberg owns both Facebook and Instagram, the two top platforms in the world. That's 3 counting X. Will YouTube adopt this? Imagine if YouTube, instead of removing content, put up community notes where it just they gave their opinion, and the community, you were able to tell people what was true or not.
We're going to simplify our content policies and get rid of a bunch of restrictions on topics like immigration and gender that are just out of touch with mainstream discourse. What started as a movement to be more inclusive has increasingly been used to shut down opinions and shut out people with different ideas, and it's gone too far. So I want to make sure that people can share their beliefs and experiences on our platforms.
And that's a huge moment for free speech too. That he said trying to be inclusive ended up being exclusive. In trying to be inclusive of all and shutting down counter opinions, we ended up destroying more free content and people's free thought than opening it up for these margins of diversity and inclusivity. They ended up, and that's our biggest problem with DEI, with diversity, equity, and inclusion. It makes people undiverse. It makes them unequal and makes them exclusive instead of inclusive.
We're changing how we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action. The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms. We're also going to tune our content filters to require much higher confidence before taking down content. The reality is that this is a trade-off. It means we're going to catch less bad stuff, but we'll also reduce the number of innocent people's posts and accounts that we accidentally take down.
And this is a very pro-American stance. This is a huge win for free speech. My hat's off to Mark Zuckerberg. And I don't care if I trust him or not. To me, it's not about, I don't care if it comes out of his heart or if he's just trying to be a more profitable company that more people enjoy using. What's the difference to me? I want the free speech on there. And even if he does it for purely selfish reasons, I'll take it. I don't care what his motive is. So he doesn't have to be all MAGA before he helps MAGA.
We're bringing back civic content. For a while, the community asked to see less politics because it was making people stressed. So we stopped recommending these posts. But it feels like we're in a new era now, and we're starting to get feedback that people want to see this content again. So we're going to start phasing this back into Facebook, Instagram, and Threads while working to keep the communities friendly and positive.
They flat out downplayed political content That means they put less commercials on political content, meaning there was less money to be made over there. So our Facebook numbers were always so low for monetization. Well, now he's removing that. He's going, look, the people, they want to talk about politics again, and we're going to let them do it. So that's good news for us in Exile.
We're going to move our trust and safety and content moderation teams out of California, and our US-based content review is going to be based in Texas. As we work to promote free expression, I think that it will help us build trust to do this work in places where there is less concern about the bias of our teams. We're going to work with President Trump to push back on governments around the world that are going after American companies and pushing to censor more. The US has the strongest constitutional protections for free expression in the world. Europe has an ever-increasing number of laws institutionalizing censorship and making it difficult to build anything innovative there. Latin American countries have secret courts that can order companies to quietly take things down. China has censored our apps from even working in the country. The only way that we can push back on this global trend is with the support of the US government. And that's why it's been so difficult over the past 4 years when even the US government has pushed for censorship. By going after us and other American companies, it has emboldened other governments to go even further. But now we have the opportunity to restore free expression, and I am excited to take it.
And I'm excited that he's taking it too, but this shows how this even influences governments around the world. Thank you, Elon Musk. Thank you, Mark Zuckerberg. We'll take it. This is a huge win for free speech. You guys know I'm a huge free speech advocate. To me, you don't have free speech, you don't have a country. So this is a huge thank you, Mark Zuckerberg. I don't care what your motives are. I think you're doing the right thing for the broadest online community. It's very American, very MAGA, much better. Big thank you. If you guys agree, let me know in the comments below. If you want to watch another video, there's another one coming up right here. Don't forget to subscribe to help us out. I'm Doug in Exile.